Great. Well, welcome and thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
And for being willing to participate in this interview process for the Berkeley Parents Union.
It's a great idea.
Based on the role of a school board director, we have designed these questions to better understand your past experience, demonstrating the characteristics and behaviors needed to be an impactful school board director. In your responses, please be sure to fully answer the question and to provide specific examples as often as possible. So, to everyone, my name is Ann Caligari, and I am sitting today with Norma Harrison. Norma has decided to introduce herself, and so here you are. Welcome.
Thanks so much. Ann.
Perfect.
I am they made me call it a community advocate because they don't give me an option to put down revolutionary and stuff like that, which is what I've been all my life. I'm a member of the Communist Party USA here in the Berkeley area. There's an Elizabeth Gurley Flynn Club, and there's another Communist Party group called GRIT in the area, more in Oakland. And I'm a member of Democratic Socialists of America, which does not hold with my politics, but they seem to want to build socialist struggle. So I'm a member of that organization. And what's the other group that I'm with? Well, that's enough. And I'm a perennial school board candidate, as it says. And, they changed the word. I asked them to change that word. They said criticize. They said that I criticize this traditional school system. And the word criticize has taken on the wrong meaning. It means the same thing as what I offered them to put instead, which is I critique it. Mm-hmm. And I don't agree with it in any regard. I think that people, from the time they can walk, should be members of the productive members of society, that this would give the opportunity for all people to do good things in society, to live with the community that they're in, and I don't know, sweep the factory floor for 15 minutes a week when you're 2 years old or something suitable. Get rid of the 8-hour day concept, and of course get rid of the idea of making profit for our owners, which is what every job that we have, except for our owners' jobs, is about.
Well, it sounds like you've been very busy. And
as much as fits.
And I know that you have a lot to say, so we have 10 questions, and I am sure within those questions you'll be able to tack on a lot of that information.
Great.
I'm happy to hold that for you if you wish.
Thank you.
Okay. So, like I said, we have 10 questions, and I'm going to get started with the first one.
Sure.
Okay. So, how would you describe the needs of the whole child experience in BUSD?
Describe the need?
Of the whole child experience.
Well, as I started out to say, I want integrated members of society, age integration. The concept that we have to... I was tormented when I had to give up my baby into a system that commanded that I do so. You had to leave the house. I didn't love taking care of house. That was not a great option. But I just didn't like the idea of that separation enforced upon us. And I want to give everybody the chance to respond to that. I'm sure everybody feels that way, that they don't want the separation that is enforced to occur. And of course, the reason it's forced to occur is that people have to be indoctrinated from the cradle with the ideas of service to this profiteering system, to this warmongering system. This system cannot function without making war. Right now they're trying to donate all those materials to Ukraine. And what that donation is our tax money paying for the items and any money that goes with it. So, and going through the hands of the profiteers to take off whatever they feel like having to put in their pockets. People need, you know, if have you ever experienced a Catholic person saying, yes, I'm a recovering Catholic, it means for years they were indoctrinated into these ideas that are so self-oppressive. I know religions are all self-oppressive. You got to hate yourself and give yourself up to some minister who's going to tell you, yeah, don't eat that, don't dance around, don't, all the other don'ts that go with religion, instead of struggle for justice for everybody, because that would give up their oversight of your life if you did that.
Okay. So we can go into the second question?
Sure.
Okay, great. Can you give examples of how you've worked to support students, children, and teachers in the past? And how will you use this experience as a board member to ensure students' needs are placed at the center of BUSD's decision making?
Well, you might have heard me say that I care about the parents' needs and the community's needs. The community I would be grateful if anybody could replicate how I lived. I'm 87, and how I lived is that after school and maybe dancing lessons and piano lessons, I went out and played with the people in the alley, the children. We played baseball, we played tag, we played annoying the heck out of each other some way or other, or getting along for several years that I lived there. I would like us to crowd together in ways that are beyond the enforced city living. City living is too crowded for people. So I would like to see people having the opportunity to do these in voluntary kind of groups. I don't know, go out and reclaim the desert. You know, there'll be people with training, people with schooling behind them to talk to you about what the desert is and what the options are to do that reclamation. And so when you're 3, you'd start learning about this, about everything. You'd start measuring, counting, repeating back what people are saying, learning the vocabulary together, because people would identify, children would say, I don't know what that means. And so then you talk about it with 7-year-olds or 50-year-olds. I would like people to see that this whole thing about trying to form your idea about how people should live together. I want that option to exist for people, instead of people keep trying to fit themselves into the system that exists. There's something else, my comments, this is one of my terrible initial comments. School is a cruel thing we do to the parents, the communities, and of course the children and adult students. Being forced to sit in classrooms in order to be considered deserving of survival and of improved survival, what degree of survival you get to be part of, needing to be judged constantly, graded on behavior, on performance of imposed, often irrelevant tasks, disallowed from participating in our brutal society, working, living age, integrated. We've got to redefine the meaning of the word work. Right now it means a job. Mm-hmm. And the job, of course, is the name of our behavior in relation to capital. That's all we get, is the opportunity to serve the people who are going to profit off of our labor. Yeah. I'm ready to go on. If you need to interrupt me.
No, we're doing good. Okay, so I have the third question for you. Let's see how this works. Name recent examples of advocacy and outreach you've led or actively participated in at the local, city, and state levels?
Well, this campaigning is one thing I give up energy for. I think this is the 6th or 7th time I'm running for the office on this basis of constructing an opportunity for people to look at what they're doing. And to that, I have another commentary. My effort is to make available to the community considerations of how we live in this society as we struggle to build the egalitarian for all children, for students, for people doing living, including maintaining our society the way we do it now as wage slaves, leaves us in variously undignified levels. It tires us without sufficient rest, that 8-hour day again. It limits our going outside in spring. I remember myself in 4th grade looking outside. I lived in Chicago, and spring, when we got it, was so delicious. And here you had to sit in the classroom. They'd open the window a little bit, and that air, I could have ate it. It was just exquisite. And we didn't get to go out until, of course, after 3 o'clock. That whole nonsense of controlling our time meaninglessly, except in order to control us. The order of living is not pleasant, no matter how hard we try to make it so. And this is another one. I was just reading Sunday's paper. Sunday's paper had about 4 pages in it. I only get the Sunday issue. It gets so much other news that the Sunday newspaper is enough, the West County Times. They're talking about how to make family out of the people with whom you have a job. And it's so not the way to do the job, to get attached to a job, to get attached to people. It's so fake. Oneself creates the necessity to have to relate in this emotionally involved way with people that you don't want to be involved with emotionally. You want to go home and be with people you've been with, that you've grown up with, that you attach to because you do have mutual interests. The job is not a nice thing. It says, oh, and of course, in the meantime, we have to pay the rent. Mm-hmm. And rent is always, and the rent board even, which I've supported for years, theoretically, says that we want to get affordable housing. There is no such thing as affordable housing. If there were affordable housing, we would ruin the ruling class.
And then you have to make time for advocating for your kid in school, right?
No, but that's all included. The child is there for the advocacy. You talk with the child. The community talks with the child. People are familiar with these ideas. They're not segregated by age. 90-year-old people are involved in your life because everybody has something that they can contribute. Somebody isn't necessarily going to go out and lift a bale of cotton, but somebody is going to talk to your child and say these things are going on, and the child is going to tell it to you, the older person, or the neighbors.
This next question really leads into this. It goes without saying that when it comes to education, our school community is passionate, opinionated, and organized. Name 1 to 2 examples where you were able to stand for and hold your convictions in the face of opposition.
I got to tell you, nobody supports my Peace and Freedom Party people don't support my campaign. My Communist Party people don't support my campaign. It's so far out, It's such a challenge that I'm not saying the things they're accustomed to hearing. And that is so difficult for people. I've got a page on that. But the idea, by the way, you say education. Education has even more recently become a commodity. Oh, he's not getting educated. Oh, he's not learning. what do they think is happening to the child's mind when they're not in school, when they're in front of the computer, when they're going out, when they're not going out, the whole thing that is going on. And the parent, people are always learning. We are all teachers and students all our lives, and that's taken away from us. That is owned by the owners who want us to have the behavior that will fit in to the profiteering society that they control. It's not as though I'm done with that statement, but you can go ahead if you want. Oh, this one. It'll be a great day when we, the scarcely very privileged, and at least I don't know about you if you agree with me, but we are very privileged in a very scarce way, over the people who don't have a place to live, over the people who are frightened all the time about maintaining, and so on, which is at least half or more of the world. I mean, so many people are on the run to relocate from the terrors that they're living. So we, the scarcely very privileged, in our enslavement to our owners, it'll be a great day when we notice the despotic, totalitarian autocracy to which rulership we willfully, ignorantly submit, the myths that we allow to control us, like freedom. This is the freest place in the world, Yeah, well, maybe it was developed that way at the beginning, but it was freedom for whom? Not for you and me, that's for sure.
Can we move on to the next question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So this is question 5. As a board member, you're accountable for the overall success of the district. Share examples of how you've provided effective governance to an organization.
Yeah, I haven't provided governance. I've provided constant commentary, and as I say, it's very difficult for people to pick up on it. I have 99% of what I have to say with the organizations that I attend is acceptable and useful, and I get a lot of yeses, yeses, yeses along with it. When I go off on this stuff, they're not there. I mean, I support Stalin. Why? Because Stalin was a great defender of the revolution, which is why he's so hated by the ruling class world. People don't get it. What does that mean? Well, it means a very harsh refusal of people to make profit off of another person's labor. And Xi Jinping in China is having the same problem. He's promised to take back the profiteering that's gone on there. And people, I'm not going to pay my mortgage. Well, the mortgage is useless because the buildings aren't being built because the people that were borrowing excessively are not able to make those loans. I mean, it's a whole range, and he's allowed, China has allowed a certain amount of profiteering to go on because they need some way for people to get along. But they now see they have to stop these people who have been making fortunes. One person says he has $600,000 in the bank and he can't get it. $600,000. Who has $600,000 to pay their bills? Mm-hmm. Not many people. And this is part. So the reorientation of so what I've done is a lifetime of working to enable people to recognize our social oppression by church, state, community, and the release to be found through communist struggle. It gives me great pleasure to do this. Otherwise, my husband died 12 years ago.
Sorry.
And was very oriented in the direction I'm talking about. Not the same way, don't get me wrong. But he was definitely communist-based, Marxist-based, which is why I absolutely worshipped him. No, that's not, he was beautiful. And he didn't listen to me, and he got cancer, pancreatic cancer, and he died. I told him not to. When they do a marriage ceremony and they stay in sickness and in health, I turned to him and I said, no sickness.
He didn't listen.
And he didn't listen again. It's just, anyway,
It's funny.
so it's difficult for people to see what so painfully controls their lives and minds. It's so integral and so supported by our neighbors, our social institutions, our myths, our owners' armies, police. My campaign is about the fierce alienation from actuality, looking toward us becoming more and more able to deal with it, thereby overgrow it with our increasing knowledge, not just of what is actually goes on, but of how to figure out how to come out from under its horrible oppression of the abuse of us all. My God, if people are not sore forever, every day about Vietnam, congratulations to them for having been able to turn away. I mean, let alone the brutality against black people, you know, which there's a person named, I'm thinking of the other one, I'll get the name in a minute. These things all lay in the wrong places in here. He was our candidate for Peace and Freedom Party president, and he's done a whole lot of reporting. We just had another, I'll go back to that. I hope people will be able to get his name in and look at any of the things he's written. It's wonderful about where black people have been all this time, where if people aren't enraged all the time about the horrible injustices that are done to groups of people, and in particular, you know, consistently black people, African Americans, African whatever. Sheesh.
I definitely hear you there. Can we go on to question 6? Okay. What is your vision of the successful graduate profile for a BUSD student?
Graduate
Profile. Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what that means.
So after that student graduates, what's their future?
Well, they'd be lucky if they could get a job washing dishes in a restaurant or anything. Getting a job is fantastically difficult. Now, I understand when I say that kind of job that it's, people get surprised. Wow, you know.
What's your vision?
Pardon?
What would be your vision, though?
Oh, I don't
What
have
would you like to see?
I want to grow revolutionaries. I want people to be modeled after the kind of thing that I'm doing, but they can't because they don't have the way to get dinner. They don't have the way to get a roof. And so they can't just make that as a choice. And the concessions that people, no matter graduate or not, the concessions that people make in order to survive, that's what I say, you know, the recovering Catholic. The recovering Catholic could be 60 years old and has had to stand up through getting along, surviving, getting enough to eat, being able to take care of children, being able to have control over reproduction for families. They don't have these rights. They're not allowed, people are not allowed to take care of oneself and or others. And taking care of other people, you know, get all these kind of enslaved people being obliged to take care of grandmothers and other broken people that otherwise wouldn't be able to take care of themselves. And the pay, like the way it is for teachers, is so minimal that it's almost, you know, when I thought that I ended up going to become a teacher, I said I said it when I was 9 years old, I am not going to be a teacher, a school teacher. And when I was about 24, I found out if I wanted a job, I better go to school. I had the option to get the certification. Of course, I only got 4 years in Illinois. So when I moved to California and thought I was going to get a job doing teaching here, my folks said, well, yeah, if you're a teacher, you can go anywhere. I was able to do teaching in Israel when we went to help build the socialist-based nation in 1966. You know, the Jews sit around for Passover dinner and they say next year in Israel. So that was a good idea. So we went. My husband was pissed off about a bunch of things. And so he said, oh, let's go to Israel. He's from Irish Catholic people. And sure, so what? You know, you could go anywhere. Well, you couldn't go because Israel would not allow him to become a citizen. Yeah, so
History lesson.
they really missed something. But they didn't have a socialist system. They too had a laboring body and people living well off of that. So, but I did some school teaching there. And the children taught me Hebrew and Arabic.
You mentioned teachers a couple of times, and the fact that we need to make sure that that they are compensated, that we're taking care of them. So this next question is really important. The school board makes important decisions, from hiring of the superintendent to passing resolutions and approving budgets. Name an example of how you have been able to collaborate in order to come to an important decision. So these are important decisions. The school board members are hiring.
Well, I say people don't get paid enough, period. Anywhere. Working people do not get paid enough. We need not to have to slave away 8 hours a day in order to send our children, if we have to college. I'm not sure that I like that. I want people to be studying all our lives in ways that you can study higher math when you're 7. There's all kinds of other options than having to go to, they call it higher education. It's just another step on creating the elitism that we live with, on the separation of who is better qualified. Do you have a degree in this? Do you have a diploma in this? Which doesn't, I'm sure it means something, but it's not the aim. It's not to get the degrees. It's to have all these experiences that make us feel good about contributing. You build the steps on the porch. While you're doing it, you find out that there's a certain arithmetic and math that goes along with building it, because other people know that stuff, and you share it because you love that stuff. You love the study, and it feels good to share it with people. Teachers are always going, oh, when their eyes light up when there's teaching going on. So everybody has that feeling. I'm sure I say everybody. I'm always wary of saying everybody, but everybody has that feeling that when we share our lives, that we feel good. Mm-hmm. And I want that opportunity to go on for everybody, and not in a compulsory circumstance. School is, they call it a compulsory free education, It's a compulsory class. And that, by the way, a 14-year-old child identified. She outlined this compulsory free education idea, and I've copied it ever since then. I listen a lot.
Doesn't sound too good when you put those words together like that.
Yeah. It never occurred to me. I mean, I talk about being mandated to have to go to school, but compulsory free education really explains our position.
Okay, so we're at question 8. Gosh, we've gone through them pretty nicely.
Good. I've got another. Oh, no, I don't.
So from COVID testing to key cards, new business key cards.
Okay.
New business processes and technology can make an enormous difference in students' and families' experience and even their safety. Provide examples of how you've led innovation in an organization, including sharing best practices and introducing new technology.
Oh, I don't have any examples of those. Yeah, that's a real. The ideas that I'm putting out here now are all I have to support our development, as it were. Development having gotten such a terrible word. When I was growing up, my mother said, "Well, you're going to develop, when you're 12 or 13." And she meant you're going to get breasts, right? Which I hardly ever could do. But,
Should we go to question 9?
but development has become people building huge amounts of buildings. And stealing the land in ways that they can do that kind of thing, and that's that's a perversion of the idea of development.
Right. Right. So, question 9. Often the school board passes a resolution that directs the district to do something new or different, but sometimes implementation is incomplete or doesn't even happen. Name an example of how you've held a large organization accountable for its goals.
Oh no, I haven't ever encountered it. Okay. I mean, I'm sure that if I stop to think of all the legislation that goes on that I oppose, decisions to go to war. I think that's the classic example. The government makes a rule that it should bomb Iraq, and I've worked to oppose it. I've marched a long time ago. I used to march.
How do you see yourself holding them accountable?
I keep on attempting to get people aware to get people to allow themselves to see what's going on, which I'm sure you're aware is very, very difficult. Yeah, we've been messed over this way, we've been messed over that way, and don't know the solutions. The struggle to control the rewards of living. You work together. Fidel Castro said, everybody eats the same. What does that mean? That means there's no privilege for people. It's just everybody has whatever plenty can be raised from the ground.
Amen. So we're at the last question. Question 10. Board members tend to be leaders both within the school district.
To be what?
They tend to be both leaders. Oh, let me start over. Board members tend to be leaders both within the school district and the community at large. What are examples in your work where you were able to improve team cohesiveness and or build community relationships?
Yeah, well, I told you at the beginning, even my comrades, my colleagues, don't go along with the kinds of things I'm doing. I say I'm running for school board again, and they go the other way. Because they got one or two ideas off of what I'm saying, and they know it's very difficult to implement it. The mind change that communities would have to go through in order to begin to challenge the structure that goes on now. We're living in a series of structures, the banking structure, the transportation structure, the energy supply structure. All of those are designed to be sure that our owners put money in their pocket. So I'm active against all of those. And when I say active, as I said, I used to march, and I don't now, I can't. And I put in my time for marching.
Marching in spirit now?
Pardon?
So you are marching in spirit?
Yeah, well, I keep on. I meet several times a week with comrades to go over the ideas and to urge activity, and every now and then I donate a little bit of money to one or another organization. Not a lot, because I don't have it, but I do encouraging things, and people like it. They give back the idea, oh yes, I get that a lot. If I weren't getting it, I don't think I could go on. But it's constant thing, people saying yes, yes.
Well, we have come to the close, of our interviews. Did you have something else you wanted to share?
Oh, endlessly.
Well, let's take a couple moments and
All right.
yeah.
I told you it's difficult for people to see how badly used we are. We don't have the space, we don't have the institutional space to look at what we're doing, at how much we hate it because we think we have to bear up under it. We put up with the requirement, shouldn't
Help yourself. I think I'll join you.
We put up with the requirement to attend classrooms regardless how offended by that command we are. We're supposed to behave properly toward being instructed. We are to submit to this compulsory free education, learning now firmly having been made into a commodity, those degrees and diplomas. People need to want to be allowed to associate together. We're not allowed. We're stopped. There's all kinds of regulations, and I mean, when the police come and beat on us when we're out in the streets, that's a limitation of us getting together, organizing to make demands, bringing us together, talk together. But the police, well, if you're black, they'll kill you. Need to want to be so. Toward that end, we have to work to end age segregation. We have to work to let people at any age participate together. And it's very hard to figure that out. We're so indoctrinated to think of the age segregation as the way, like it's God-given or something, which is absurd. Instead of institutionalizing the disrespect, grades in school, for one, permit people not to have to be judged. Oh, don't give grades all the time. Don't give grades, yes, you get an A or a 4 or whatever. Permit people not to have to be judged all the time. In fact, they could judge for themselves if given the opportunity. Did you succeed in building the steps all right? Well, I had to fix this or that. So, yeah.
It's all a learning process, you're saying?
Pardon?
It's all a learning process.
Well, I'm not saying that exactly. I'm saying that the people evaluating need to be themselves. Because did they do a good job, according to them? And no, I had to repair this and that, and so.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So people aren't stupid, and they're treated as though they haven't an idea in their heads. Well, the idea is to fit in, allow us all to produce and enjoy the fruit of our labor, and that it's our owners who profit from our labor. So a lot of this becomes repetitive from what I've said. Children and youth are prevented from integrated activity, integration within or beyond the community in which they live. And we're all geniuses. We are alienated from being allowed to develop the direction that drives us. 8-hour day does not allow those things. School day plus homework plus regulation of what you're supposed to think and feel, those things limit us from following a genius that we have. Well, many people have followed that genius, and you've noticed that. And I'm saying that that's 100% of people have that tendency that is cut off by these constructs that we're, church for one.
I have to agree with you there on the brilliance. And that's one thing that we definitely notice in our children.
Is not...
We notice their brilliance.
Yeah.
Right. and that's why we want to make sure that they have the opportunity.
It's not going to happen by school.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to fix school. I am in no way trying to fix school. Somebody said it right. They said it's already fixed. It does the job. It supplies the working force that's needed to make profit for our owners. And so that's the fix that school or that the capitalist system is. Capitalism works. It's fixed. In that other meaning of the word fixed.
Well, so I think that I think we're good. We've got all 10 questions answered. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for spending the time with me today.
Anytime.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you. I think I've been to 1 or 2 forums where you were before, but it's been a while.
Yes,
And
just 2 years.
And I can't believe you said you're 87. I
too.
don't believe it.
Me too. Just watch me walk. It's been so unfair, you know.
But I wish you all the best with your
Sure you
candidacy.
Do. Sure.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Ann, and good luck to getting... I mean, nobody's going to go in and try to fix things. They're all going to say, oh, I did this and all these other things that I helped them fix the school system into much better, but none of it has happened. None of it has happened. They talk about a what kind of gap they call it? Learning gap? What's the word?
I've heard achievement gap. I've heard equity gap.
Yeah. It hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
We're still leaving people behind. I'm convinced, this thing about the black child being accused of not fitting in properly. At the back of their minds, they're going, heck with this junk. They don't... They have a taste of it. They come from families that have a lot of self-respect that they try to imbue into the child, and the child is supposed to go to school and give those things up, or go into society and give those things up. And the child is saying, no, I will not comply. And I think it's based on their cultural identity, which is great. Absolutely. Well, great. Thank you so much.